great are you, Lord? Great are you, Lord. Sing that one more time. And great are you.
As they're stepping down, will you thank the band for all that they do? So if you've been with us for a while, or if you've even visited once, if today was your first day, you've noticed we start our service a little differently. In that we begin with this phrase, "Welcome to the building at 1400. I'm looking for the church." And look at you, beat me to it. I didn't even have to ask the question. It's been drilled in your heads for some time now. Congratulations. And every Sunday, and if this is your first Sunday with us, you'll hear us close with a slightly different phrase, same principle though. We've gathered here in worship. Now it's time for us to go and be the church. And last week, Mike touched on in this message series that we call Here and Now. Mike touched on the last piece of that, the go and be the church. And he asked me to look at one of the other little things that we do, which is we call our church members partners in ministry. And before we kind of go into that and the differences in that, I wanted to kind of look at that statement, both of these statements, in a little different way. And if you look at both of those statements, nowhere in there does it have, we're here to attend church. We're here to consume church. In neither one of those phrases is there anything really passive about them, if that makes sense. Especially the last one. Especially the last one. What does it say? What do we say? It's time for us to go and be the church. Now, I don't know about you, but when someone's telling me to go and do something, that doesn't usually mean do nothing. That usually doesn't mean stay in place. That usually doesn't mean just do whatever you want. Although, full disclosure, I am, as my parents can attest, a massive procrastinator. So when you tell me to go, procrastinators unite tomorrow. So when you tell me to go and do something, I will eventually, but most likely it's going to be 11:58 before the midnight deadline, and I'm rushing and can't understand why I'm so stressed out and have all of a sudden stress eating 3 sleeves of Oreos, So full disclosure, go is kind of up to interpretation, but under the strict definition of it, how we typically would take in the word go and be, those action items, that implies now, right? So here and now. And there's a pastor that I really like. His name is Craig Groeschel. I've read his stuff for quite some time. He was influential in some of my theology many years ago, about 10 years ago or so, and still continues to be. And he has this book that you may or may not have heard of. It's called The Christian Atheist. It seems kind of like it's quite the oxymoron, Christian Atheist. But it's a book that tackles the idea that we say that we believe in God, but then we fail to live out our life in any manner that says we do. We don't walk in faith. We don't do the other things that are required of us as Christians. And so our words tend to ring hollow. And because of that, our behavior, therefore, is never really any different than that of an atheist. Hence the term Christian atheist. We maybe attend Sunday gatherings. If you're Catholic, Mass on Saturday perhaps, I don't know. But we attend our gathering, we attend our church of our choice, and then we just kind of go home and we forget about all of it. And that's the concept that he's tackling in this book. And one of the things, as I was preparing for this message, that I really, really found fascinating is the idea of attending church. See, just like go and be is an active phrasing, attending is also kind of an active phrasing, but with a little caveat, and that's kind of what I want to talk about here for a second. He quotes, "To many people, church is a place. It's a building, bricks and mortar, a destination. We go to church. The problem with thinking we go to church is that it gives us a consumer mindset. I'm looking for a church that meets my needs. I need a church that will help me." Do you see the problem with that? When we say attend a church, or when we say we go to church rather than be the church, there's an implication of a consumer mindset that all we're called to do is show up, consume the music, consume the message that's being brought, and then we hit our time clock on the way out, and we clock back in next Sunday morning. And that's all that we're called to do. And the problem with that is it creates a consumer mindset. And if you've read anything, if you've understood anything of what Jesus has called us to do, of any of his preachings in the gospel, you know we're not called to consume anything. We're not called to be passive. We're not called to do anything like that. But yet in our culture, specifically, when I say our culture, I'm not necessarily talking about the national culture. I want to break it down, look at it more on a regional level, the Bible Belt. The Bible Belt. When you meet somebody new and you start to get to know them, a couple of questions you're going to ask them: how's your mom and them? You know, that kind of thing. But what are the other questions that you start to ask someone once you get to know them? When's your birthday? Yeah, we'll make this a little active. What are some other questions that you ask when you get to know? Favorite color? Okay. Someone else speak before Amanda hijacks the message. Where do you go to church? That's important, right? Because let's be honest with ourselves. Where you go to church, depending on how you view church and depending on what role church plays in your life, that matters a lot. I will be 100% honest with you, as I always am, because I like to think that I'm amazing and perfect. I don't know where that comes from. But I do admit that I have flaws, and I'm self-aware of those flaws, which allows me to blind some of them out. Sometimes when you tell me you go to a certain church, I'm going to roll my eyes. I have an unfair, at times, unfounded dispositions towards perhaps certain denominations that maybe if you tell me you attend that denomination, I might take 10 points off your faith scorecard. Kind of like when a northerner hears a southern accent, they all of assume something. So little do they know. But that's one of the problems. That's one of the things that we always ask. Where do you go to church? And that's an important question around here, is it not? But the problem is, there's a little bit wrong with that question. Not only do we ask what church we attend, sometimes we ask, what church are you a member of? What church are you a member of? And that phrasing, we don't like to use around here. I'll stop short of calling it problematic because it is quoted in the verse that I'm using today, perhaps a little bit differently than how we typically use it. But we'll ask, what are you a member of? And if you've been around us, if you've been a part of this church congregation and this church body for a while, you've heard Mike open up the altar at the end and say, if you would like to come and join us as partners in ministry. Karen will be down here. She'll take your information. We'll go through all the next steps, do all that stuff. But why do we do that? And why is it that, again, I don't like using this word, but why is it that maybe the term member is a little problematic, or maybe it's not the term that we want to look for as part of our church, as how we structure our congregation and how we structure what we do around here? Well, it seems kind of trite, but to prepare for the message, but I did this. I Googled the definitions, and you can do this too. We all have access to this wonderful thing called Google. It's going to steal all of your data and try to sell you random products later on, but it's useful nonetheless. It may even listen into your conversations. I don't know. Or is it Amazon that listens? I can't remember. Someone's always stalking me in some corporation somewhere. It's a matter of life. But if you Google what the definition of a member is, the definition is belonging to a particular group and joined of a group, society, or team. And when you look at these definitions, belonging to a particular group, all that they imply is that your work and your role and everything that you've done to be a member, you're complete once you just join. That's all you have to do is join. And that's what it implies. That's what the term member implies. Now, if you look up the definition of body member, it gets a little different. But when we just talk about a member, and think about it in the context of things that you sign up for. You sign up for Netflix. You have a Netflix membership. You have a Hulu membership. You have a library. You're a member of the library club, or you're a member of the country course, or country club, or any golf course or anything like that. When you are a member of something, all that's required of you is to apply, correct? Pay a fee, depending on the service. You pay your fee, and then what do? You consume that service. When you're a member of something, that's all that's required. However, if we look up the definition of what a partner is, the difference is important. The definition of a partner is a person or a group that takes part with another or others in doing something. A person or a group that takes part with another or others in doing something. You notice that difference? Notice that difference? A member is just something that's joined with something. They're part of a group. But a partner is a person that takes part with a group of others in doing something. Anyone want to take a guess at what we're supposed to be doing here? Spreading Jesus. I prefer the term spreading the gospel, but I will take that answer as well. I would say gold star, but I don't think that's appropriate. I don't think that's what we're looking for here. Our roles within the church simply don't end just because we join. It's not a membership. It's not a club. It's not something we do on a Sunday morning. Our job isn't just to join and consume. That's not what we're called to do. Far from it. We're called to be a partner. We're called to be a part of something to go do something. In this case, spread the gospel. And in another case, strengthen the body of Christ. Give of our time and energy. We're not called just to sit here, punch the time clock on Sunday morning, sing a couple songs, listen to a message, criticize it behind his back. We all do it. Not my back, Mike's back. I mean, you all think mine are wonderful. I'm joking. And then go home. That's not what we're here to do. We're here to be partners. We're here to be a part of a organization to do something. What this does, and what this very important distinction does, it might seem like semantics, but to me it's very important. What it does is it takes the idea of attending a church, it takes the idea of going to church, and it totally flips it on its head. You don't attend. You don't go to. You're a part of a church. You're a partner in a church. You're not a consumer anymore. You don't consume church. You don't consume the gospel. I mean, we do consume the gospel in our personal time for betterment of ourselves. But you're not here just to consume an hour of entertainment, of Jesus-filled entertainment. You're here to be a part of something. You're here to help an organization do something. That partnership, the term partnership, really flips the idea of attending church, being a part of a church, being a member in a church on its head from a consumer mindset to an active go and be the church mindset. It may seem like semantics, but it's a completely different definition, and Google will prove that to you right now. Not right now, please don't pull out your phones and Google, but after the message, Google it. Prove me wrong. Because unless they change the definition in the last 5 days, my point stands. And so rather than looking for a church that meets my needs, rather than consuming, rather than saying, I'm looking for a church that meets my needs, the question becomes, how can I meet the needs of my church? In changing one word from member to partner, the entire paradigm, the entire concept is flipped over. And we no longer say, where can I attend a church that meets my needs? Because that's important to people. People like having their needs met. I do. just like anybody else. And when you're first selecting a congregation, when you're first selecting a church body to be a part of, that's an important consideration, 100%. But that's not our purpose. That's not what we're made for. We're not made for just to bounce around to what place makes us feel comfortable today, which place has the right AC temperature setting for us. We're called to be part of something larger. We're called to do more. We're called to look to meet the needs of the church. And one of our main problems, frankly, is a lot of times we don't know how we can meet the needs of the church. And it's understandable. It's easy to get in the rhythm. It's easy to come in and say, I've done it. And sometimes we just don't know that there are needs that need to be met. And sometimes we don't know that we can meet those needs. And we don't think that we have what we need. But Paul in his letter to the first letter to the Corinthians, soundly dispels the idea that you don't have any gifts to give to the church. See, it's one thing to come in and see the band and see Mike and see us do these certain things in a given Sunday morning and think that you don't have any gifts to give, to think that you don't have anything to bring, but that's soundly untrue. It's profoundly untrue. And Paul dispels this entire notion in one swift passage in his first letter to the Corinthians, chapter 12, verse 12 through 26. If you have a version on your phone, I'm reading from the ESV. For just as the body is one and has many members, and all the members of the body, though many, are one body, so it is with Christ. For in one Spirit we were all baptized unto one body, Jews or Greeks, slaves or free, and all were made to drink of one Spirit. For the body does not consist of one member, but many. If the foot should say, because I am not a hand, I do not belong to the body, that would not make it any less a part of the body. And if the ear should say, because I'm not an eye, I do not belong to the body, that would not make it any less of a part of the body. If the whole body were an eye, where would be the sense of hearing? If the whole body were an ear, where would be the sense of smell? But as it is, God arranged the members in the body, each one of them, as he chose. If all were a single member, where would the body be? As it is, there are many parts, yet one body. The eye cannot say to the hand, I have no need of you, nor again the head to the feet, I have no need of you. On the contrary, the parts of the body that seem to be weaker are indispensable. And on those parts of the body that we think less honorable, or we bestow the greatest honor, and our unrepresentable parts are treated with greater modesty, which our more presentable parts do not require. But God has so composed the body, giving greater honor to the part that lacked it, that there may be no division in the body, but that the members may have the same care for one another. If one member suffers, all suffer together. If one member is honored, all rejoice together. This is the word of God for the people of God. Thanks be to God. Paul here makes it very, very clear. The body is created of many parts, and they all perform different functions. Let me give you a more immediate idea of what it would look like if we were all one part. You just heard the band hopefully facilitate worship with you. Could you imagine if everyone in here was a bass player? And everyone showed up with varying 4 strings, 5 strings, 6 strings, and just sat around and popped and slapped on the bass all day. How obnoxious and annoying would that be? Guys, I play bass. It's okay. I can insult it. It's not that good. I can insult it. I get that pass. But B, what good would it serve? What good would it serve anybody? Would we learn anything? Define play, because sometimes we don't really play. But would we learn anything? Would we love each other? Probably not. I'd probably hit one of you with a headstock. Would we help the poor and the needy? Would we do any of the things that we're called to as a ministry if we all just brought a 4-string bass of worship and that's all we all did? How ridiculous is that seen? We all have different gifts. And every person in the body has a gift that they can contribute. And that gift provides value to the rest of the body. And it's very clear in the last verse, if one member suffers, all suffer together. If one member is honored, all rejoice together. If one member is not functioning correctly, if one part of your body is not functioning correctly, everything else is thrown off. I don't know if you've ever pulled a hamstring, but frankly, I don't ever think about my hamstring until that bad boy isn't working anymore. I don't think about my eye until it starts itching. There are many parts of my body that I don't think about until all of a sudden, oh, we got a problem. But does that make any of those parts of the body any less valuable than, say, the fingernails that I chew on every day? Kind of gross, but it's advice. I got it. I have a accountability partner that I'm working on that with. Is it any less valuable than the hair I take great care to form every morning before I step out of the house? No, it's not. In fact, my hamstring provides more value than my hair, correct? And in that way, all of the members of the body provide something valuable to the body. In that same way, our different gifts provide different valuables, and none are useless. Because that's one of the things that people say is, I don't have anything to give. I'm kind of useless. I don't really have any gifts. I'm not a musician. I'm not a great orator. I can't give a message or anything like that, or I'm too shy to do this. Guys, here's one thing. We have a great time playing music for you every Sunday morning. Or not for you. Sorry, that was a horrible phrasing. We have a great time getting up here and playing music and facilitating worship. But I'm going to let you in on a little secret, and I'm not trying to downplay what we as a worship band do. That gift is only good for 30 minutes on a Sunday. Do you hear me? That gift is only good for 30 minutes on a Sunday. Its value is only so much. Loving on somebody, that's a gift that's 24/7. Volunteering in the youth, building a relationship with a kid, that gift is 24/7. Serving in children's church, developing relationships with parents that you can then turn into beautiful life groups, that you can then turn into 3 a.m. phone call emergency friendships. That is a 24/7 gift. You've been given gifts. And just because you don't think you have gifts, you have them. And those gifts arguably are way, way more valuable. And I'm not even arguably, they are way more valuable than some of the more visible things that you see on a Sunday morning. If you have a gift for working with children, consider helping with a children's life group. If you've been called to lead a life group, but guess what? You sit here and think, I don't have the gift to teach. Guess what? No problem. We have videos and books that will lead you in lessons. And then all you have to worry about is building relationships with those in that life group. You don't have to have a gift to teach to lead a life group. You don't have to have a gift to teach to deal with children. You have to have a great gift of patience, which is a wonderful, beautiful gift I do not have. Especially when it comes to those in the age range of less than 12. Partially because I never grew out of my teenage years. And then, partially just because, I don't know, children kind of frighten me. Which disappoints my parents on a certain level because they're waiting. You don't have to have that gift to teach to be able to join and work with children to lead a life group. If you have the gift of cooking, can some of you cook? We have chili cook-offs twice a year. That helps raise funds for the youth. We have, oh my goodness, what's the name? Chow Time that Kathy leads. If you can cook, consider providing some food for that. Provide some desserts if you can bake. Your gifts are not useless just because you don't think that they fit in. They have value. If you've been blessed with some financial abundance, consider giving an offering above and beyond your ordinary tithe to the church. All of you, or a good portion of you, gathered together a couple months ago, and we put together all of our areas of ministries needs. And as part of that process, we're looking at the budget right now. And so we are prayerfully considering our budget for the year. And so if you have been blessed financially, consider using that as a gift for the church and helping us grow the ministry areas that we can grow so that we can do a bigger VBS for the children and all these other little things that have been planted in your hearts, all these little events that we can do more child times. Reach out to those people so we can have a larger needy fund for the church, so we can maybe keep the AC down 2 degrees cooler the way you like it. That's a gift. If you have a gift of being friendly, can you be nice to people? Can you at least pretend to be nice to people? Now, okay, I'm not going to lie, I'm kind of awkward with it. I may or may not look you in the eye. I may kind of look at the room, hey, welcome to church this morning. I'm going to be a little weird about it just up front with you whenever you see me in and out of here. But if you can be friendly with people, guess what? Carter, Chris, they're always needing people at the door, greeting people coming in. That's a simple, valuable gift. It doesn't require a lot. It's nothing that requires your gifts are something that you've been given that they've been given to you for the use to strengthen the body. It's not something that requires 10 to 20 years of training, intense advanced theological seminary education, and all these other things. Throughout this series, we've talked about the idea of mattering here and now. Where? Here. When? Now. And why? Because you're valuable. The first step in using our gifts and being partners in ministry is recognizing that our gifts do have value, no matter how small they may seem. All of the parts of the body are needed. Not just the hands and the feet, but the fingernails and the eyebrows. We're not called to attend church. That's not what we're here for. We're not here to attend. We're not here to consume church. We're not here to simply be a member. We're not here to linger. When we become Christians, when we declare a faith in Jesus, he gives us a direct order to go and spread the gospel. And one way we can help spread the gospel is to help the needs of the church through our gifts, through being a partner in ministry, through doing more than just coming here, sitting in a chair on a Sunday morning. We're not called to attend, and we're not called to be members as if this was some club we all just decide to join one Sunday. We're called to be partners in ministry. It's an active calling, just like when we say go and be the church. We talked about that last Sunday. It's an active calling. It's not passive. We're not here to be passive. No one hears the gospel through passive activity. No one comes to know Jesus through us sitting here and doing nothing about it, doing nothing with it. How are we to spread the gospel if we're not going to use our gifts, if we're not going to be active in the church? And part of it's cultural, but so many of us are just caught in the idea that we go to church. It's just the phrase we've used all our lives. And when you use it all your life and it's been a major part of your culture and everything that you do, you don't really think much of it. We go to church. That's the name of this message. We go to church. That's not what we do. That's not what we're supposed to do. That's not what the body of Christ is supposed to do. A quick reading in the first half of Acts, which is another passage I was considering for this, shows that that's not what the early church was intended to do. The early church gathered all its resources and spread it amongst its members. We weren't called to hoard our gifts. We weren't called to keep these things to ourselves. That's not how the church body is supposed to function. We're not asked to go to church. We're asked to be the church. And that requires us to serve faithfully and use the gifts we've been given to strengthen the body of Christ. As we close out and the worship band begins to close us out this morning, the altar's open. Every Sunday morning, the altar's open. You want to know another gift that we could use? Prayer. Everyone in here, there are people, not everyone, there are people hurting in here. Some you know, some you don't know. There are people that are partners of our church that aren't here this morning that are hurting. We can also use you to faithfully pray for our church and those in it. And part of that's here at the altar. As we come this morning, just come to the altar and let things go. Let this idea of attending church, being a passive member, this can be a first step to saying, okay, God, what gifts do you want me to use for the betterment of the church? What gifts can I bring? What offerings can I bring to you and use to strengthen your body? Lord, we just thank you for this time together, Father. We thank you for your patience with us, for your grace, Lord. That at times we as a body can be complacent. That we sometimes forget that we're called to be the church, Father, or that we think very little of ourselves. We don't see ourselves in the light that you see us. We don't see the gifts that we have. We don't see the things that you have bountifully blessed us with. Lord, this morning as we open the altar, as we come to you, Father, we just pray that you'll open our hearts, you'll open our eyes to see the needs of the church, to see the needs of the body, Father. And that you'll help us see where we can fill in the gaps, where we can offer our services, where we can offer our gifts, our time, our resources, everything, Lord, that we won't be held back by anything, Lord, that we'll have a desire to serve you, to strengthen the body. And Father, as we go and be the church, that you can use us in ways that we never thought we could be, as a tool for your gospel, as a living message for you. In your name we pray. The altar is open this morning.